And here we are with our lousy recording software again. We always have to start out with that because it doesn't actually tell us we're recording. It just kind of freezes for a second and then it goes on. So, okay, we're live. And this time in the sandwich we have Itzik Ben-Gan. And there's something I've been wanting to ask you for years, man. God forbid it ever happen. But should you ever get divorced, are you going to go back to your maiden name of just Ben?
Well, my maiden name was...
Because you clearly hyphenated it when you got married, which I didn't know was a custom over there. So
no, actually, Ben-Gan is a translation of some Georgian name. It has
Really?
nothing to do with maiden names or anything. So the original Georgian name was Janashvili,
okay.
and in Georgian, Shvili is son, essentially. So
Okay.
Jana, they just converted to Gan in Hebrew, so it's nothing to do with... And my original name was actually Dimitri.
Oh, wow.
Not Isaac.
You know, you actually do look more like a Dimitri. Yeah, you really do. I like that. Does anybody call you Dimitri, or is that
only
kind
my
of fall into the wind?
My mother,
Yes.
most of my friends don't know that this was my original name, but now they do.
See, now we have an N.
Yeah, exactly. Go, hi, say hi to Dimitri. I'm like, who the hell's Dimitri? My sister changed her name. It was Shin, and now it's Eliana. And everybody, she lives in New York City now for years, and everybody calls her Eliana. And my mother and I are the only ones, well, and her now,
Well,
are the
you
only ones
introduced me
that
to her
are
as
the
Shin.
only ones that call her Shin. And everybody's like, "Who the hell are you talking about? That's Eliana." And I just can't get used to it. I mean, I was raised with her for 40 years as Shin, right? And now she's Eliana. And I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, so only my mother and my grandmother, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we call you that, you'll say, yes, mother.
Yeah, well, I'm not
Maybe.
used to beside my
Yeah.
mother.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't even answer, would you?
Yeah.
So last time we talked, I think it was at Tech Ed, and you were planning on moving either to the States or specifically to Seattle. Has that actually happened yet?
Not yet, but I mean, we did find a place, but it's currently just land and trees.
Oh, I see. I see.
So, but yeah, I mean,
that's the best way to do it.
We are in the process. Very excited about it. I mean, whenever I'm here, I pretty much feel like home already. You know, I land here, it already feels home.
That's very cool.
You know, Microsoft being very close, amazing views in the area, and I have to say, I think I have more social life here in this area than back home. So
man, you're
it
living
would
my
be
dream.
very natural. Yeah.
We wanna get a nice stretch of land and build a house on it and stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, right now we're in the Dallas Metroplex, and
Yeah, if you
land
want
with trees
yeah.
is kind of at a premium.
Unless you want to move 4 hours away.
Yeah, exactly, which is kind of the opposite of what we want to do by moving, right? I just had something, and it just left my mind.
Well, I was going to just mention really quick that in your book, it was a real revelation to me. It was really cool how you explained the logical processing steps for SQL Server, and it clarified it for me that oh, I see, it does this first, it gets it, and then it narrows it down, and then it this, and then it that. That's not really a question. It's just a quick side note, you know.
Just a kudos to you.
No, I'm just saying it was a really big deal, and I wrote a couple of blogs on it, and I was like, you know, Itzik is real cool. So, so is that something that I hate to say something so noob as something you worked out for yourself, but you talk to people on the team, or you know, is this something that everybody else knows and it's just news to me?
No, I think that this is actually the reason that what you said about kind of opening your eyes and so on is because for most people thinking of SQL is more like an extension to procedural kind of programming. And you know, one of the key points in procedural programming is that the lines of code get processed in written order.
Right, yeah.
So there's a more, I would say, intuitive way of thinking, and with SQL is very different. This is only one area where SQL is very different. There are many areas in which it has very unique kind of behavior, I would say. So the main point, I think, is the fact that the logical design of the language tries to make it as much as possible English-like, I would say.
Yes.
Resemble English, and resemble more a spoken language rather than kind of a computing language. And that's why also it's sometimes referred to as a declarative, you know, language and not a procedural language. So you focus on what you want to get and not how to achieve it. So, you know, while when we say something, when we make a request, like, you know, grab a six-pack from the refrigerator, you start with the object, and then you refer to the location for a computer, I would say. it has to know what's the location before it knows
the
what you can get from
and
it.
then what to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one area why the logical query processing concept is different than what you're used to in procedural languages. But there's also many other unique kind of aspects to SQL, like the concept of all at once, that as if everything is evaluated at the same point in time, and for people is very kind of counterintuitive or non-natural type of thinking. So people are used to having expressions evaluated from left to right or in some particular order, written order. In SQL, you somehow need to think about everything taking place as if at the same point in time or timeless. So yeah, I mean, there are many things that are very unique to SQL, and if people go through this concept of logical query processing, it opens their eyes to the unique type of thinking that you need to adopt when you need to code in SQL.
Yeah, and it seems like a very, very fundamental kind of thing. And I mean, I was in databases for years before I ran across that in your book and went, oh, that was helpful.
Yeah, very good. I'm glad.
So, I'm not sure if this is a dumb question or not, but it just struck me when you said it's counterintuitive to the way we speak.
Or the way we think.
Yeah, the way we think. Do you find that people who speak languages that are constructed differently from English have an easier time with certain aspects of
more
that?
Intuitive grasp.
More intuitive grasp of how that works?
Well, I mean, I'm not
Russian or...
Right, no. Well, I'm not a big expert in languages, so for me, the languages I know, not that many, it's Hebrew, English, a little bit of Russian, so in this sense, they're all similar in this respect. So it's more like whenever you declare what you want, you typically don't start with the location, even though for a machine or a computer it has to start with the location. So in this sense, I am not aware of other languages that use different ways to structure, even though maybe there are some languages like this, but it is different. It's just the way we think, the way we speak, versus the way a computer has to analyze or break down. The link language, actually, the way they designed their clauses is actually more in accord with logical query processing and less with the spoken language. So they start with a from clause.
Right.
And for some people, I mean, even after you are aware of this, then for some people it would still feel more intuitive to be able to refer to their request as select first and then from, while others, I have to say, I'm one of those that I feel more comfortable with phrasing things the way I'm thinking of logical query processing and being able to refer
because
to from.
you know the under the covers.
But not necessarily. I'm saying also other people that do know the behind the scenes part, still they would rather phrase things the way they speak.
I see.
I think it's a personal thing, but the key thing is to understand this, because, for example, this is how you can easily explain why you cannot refer to an alias that you assign in the select clause within your where clause.
Right.
Yes.
For many, you know how many times people came to me after a session and asked me if Microsoft fixed this bug?
Yes.
Yeah. 2008. So
that was wonderful to have that clarified. It's like I knew that you couldn't, but now that I have a reason for it, I can actually remember not to do that.
Now it makes perfect sense. So that's why.
But you can refer to an alias in a having clause.
No.
Not in a having, but
it's only the order by.
You
have the from, you have the where, you have the group by, you have the having.
Yeah.
Then you have the select, and then you have the order by. So order by is in fact the only one where this is allowed.
No, great. Now I just misspoke on.
Now, do you think?
Oh, it's an opportunity.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that was a planted question.
Now, do you think that people would have fewer problems with T-SQL? Notice I said fewer and not less problems. If the language were structured, the syntax were structured in the way it was processed instead of the way you think.
I have no doubt. So this is why I said for people that do understand the logic behind, then it becomes a personal thing. But as long as you understand why, you can or cannot do certain things. But what I think is that if it was structured in accord with the logical query processing concept, then there would be fewer questions about, why.
Right.
This is
Yeah, exactly.
Still, it won't answer everything. For example, the concept of all at once. For people, it's hard to understand why. When you swap column values, you can say set column 1 equals column 2 and column 2 equals column 1, and it kind of magically works. Or why if you write expressions and end them and expecting them to be evaluated from left to right, and if one part already gives away the final answer, they assume that the next part should not be physically processed, but then because of the all-at-once concept, SQL Server can essentially start at any point. So one of the things that would be addressed with the language that was written in logical query processing order would be the aliasing things. But some you would still need to understand, you would still need to learn about the specifics of SQL that are so unique compared to, procedural type of programming.
Now, you work a lot with the product team. So on that vein, have you y'all gone down those roads of maybe making an alternate syntax for T-SQL so that people could write it in the order that it's processed if they wanted to?
More to document.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, because they give us different ways to do things. So is that something that's crossed y'all's mind and y'all have kicked around?
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is that the product team for SQL Server wouldn't change something that is so fundamentally in the standard SQL language. Mm-hmm. So I mean, obviously, it's much better to be in accord with the standard ISO, ANSI standards and not rearrange. Obviously, someone did think about this when they came up with the link concept.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I would rather have a language that's much more in accord with the standard rather than whatever I feel more comfortable with in terms of the language design.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a solid quality.
Yep.
What do you do all day? What is your? I mean,
what
do you do all day? What would you say you do here? What does your day consist of? Do you just teach 24/7, or do you consult at different places? I mean, what do you do?
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, my passion is teaching.
Okay.
Teaching and also working on querying problems, pretty much. So as much as possible, I teach, and this means traveling all the time wherever the teaching part takes place. And then normally when I'm not teaching, I typically work constantly pretty much on different querying related problems. So the logical aspects, the tuning aspects. So it's kind of ongoing thing that constantly you get new problems or new insights about existing problems or all kinds of things like this. Lots of writing work, I have a couple of columns
you write?
to keep. I write, but
every now and then.
I'm surprised, I have to say that for me, for example, the writing part, also the speaking in the larger conferences is something that I enjoy less. It's more kind of querying and teaching that I really love. But the other things you pretty much have to do for different reasons. Like the writing part, first of all, I can give students a book that contains all the text. In a 5-day class, you can't really capture everything. It's impossible. And I mean, if I had it my way, I would have advanced SQL content delivered in a matter of 3 weeks, to give it justice.
Wow, that'd be a heck of a thing.
Oh yeah, but wow. No one would, the class would never run. Obviously.
I'd go.
Yeah, but most people it doesn't work.
So it's expensive, and you can't take that much time off work and all that stuff.
So for practical reasons. So this. I mean, even though the books that I wrote are available publicly, the real reason I wrote them was to give students the text and whatever we cover in class. Then they have more examples. They can always. It's also impossible in a 5-day class also to capture everything. You just hear what's available. You understand the capabilities. You understand the logical aspects of the solutions, but impossible to capture 100% of the content. So they have the books, that they can take all the examples and come back to those later on. And also, it helps you kind of organize your stuff. So even if you already worked on certain problems and you have the solutions kind of carved there in your brain, still when you need to put it into words, you have to do it in, first of all, you have to close all small details, and kind of allows you to organize your thoughts there. So it has this, side effect, I would say. But I don't enjoy the writing process. I do enjoy whenever I do start speaking, even in the bigger conference, I do enjoy the situation, seeing people's reactions and excitement and so on. But so much stress is involved in the, in those conferences. So, yeah, for me, the real fun stuff is the working on a good querying problem and teaching. Yeah, so that's pretty much what my day is made of. Okay. Traveling, teaching, and working on problems.
Okay, much. Cool. Okay, so working on problems, that's really interesting. And I told you before we filmed that we don't really have a real format here, right? And this is why. Because something always shakes out, right?
Yeah,
right.
We'd never get through a full thing.
Yeah, we'd never get through a full thing because I I go off on too many tangents, which is why I'm a horrible coder. So that's, I mean, you're the absolute perfect guy to ask this question to. Tackling big T-SQL problems and visualizing a solution, because I find, because I'm more of an admin, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
correctly.
I'm a PowerShell guy, I'm an admin guy, I'm system performance, and I code well enough, but I'm not a coder, right? Because